Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Missouri Poison Center's live webinar on the 4th of July poisons. My name is Amanda and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator here at the Missouri Poison Center. I work in all things education and outreach, so feel free to reach out if you ever need assistance with material, classes, education for any audience. That's what I do. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming holiday. With the 4th of July coming up this weekend, I thought it was important to talk about some of the things that might be a part of your holiday weekend. So of course, any of these products, specifically the fireworks and other products, really need to be supervised by a responsible adult for the risk of injury and burns. That's not necessarily the focus of this topic. It's more the ingestion or skin or inhalation or breathing in of these potential poisons. So let's get started. And by all means, if you have any questions or comments along the way, feel free to put them in the chat and I will try my best to get to them as I speak here today. So the first thing we're going to look at is just food. We know that lots of holiday parties include food, so it is important to make sure you follow good hygiene principles, so specifically clean hands, cleaning hard surfaces and utensils with soap and water for at least 20 seconds before making food, and certainly after handling raw meat and poultry. And then anything that is food items should be separated. So use separate cutting boards and plates and utensils for things such as raw meat and poultry as well. You want to make sure that food is cooked to the proper safe internal temperature. That involves actually using a meat thermometer and knowing what the proper meat temperatures are and bringing them up to those temperatures. And then really important, especially if it's warm this weekend, is to make sure that your foods are chilled properly. So, those things that set out for a couple of hours after the party, it's really best to make sure that food sits out no longer than 2 hours at room temperature. That would be inside. But if it's outside or in degrees above 90 degrees, which it certainly could be this weekend, you want to make sure that food sits out for no more than 1 hour to best avoid foodborne illness. All right, and so we also use a lot of things to heat our grills, to use for tiki torches and lanterns and lights in the backyard. And these things are different fuel sources are called hydrocarbons. And hydrocarbons are basically able to be lit or ignited. So think about your lighter fluid, your tiki torch fuel, your kerosene and gasoline. All of these things can be a serious poison risk, especially to a young child who were to grab a bottle. Look at that look-alike pair there with the grape juice and tiki torch fuel, how much it looks the same in terms of the bottle shape and color. And children can easily grab those bottles if they're not put away properly. And the problem with hydrocarbons or fuels like this is that they are a choking or an aspiration risk. So just think of the last time you took a big gulp of something and it went down the wrong pipe. Maybe you coughed and sputtered or choked, had a hard time swallowing it. That's what can happen with these types of fuels. And then that liquid kind of coats the lungs and can cause a lot of breathing issues. And that can be quite a serious poison risk to children. So we want to make sure that those products after use are put away up high and out of reach, locked up in the garage or the shed. And lots of parties, especially summer parties, include alcohol, as summer drinks are especially appealing to children because they're sweet and colorful and flavorful, and they can also be made into products like slushies or frozen drinks and popsicles. So we want to make sure that those are separate from the kids' drinks and items, especially because they are so attractive. And then we also say following a party, make sure that all those empty cups and vessels are put away and thrown away every time, that night. So they're not waking up early and potentially getting into those appealing drinks in the morning when they arise and wake up. And we always encourage families and parents, even though, parents get worried if their children consume alcohol unintentionally, that we are free and confidential. There's not judgment here when you call the Poison Center. We want to give you that medical advice that helps you to make sure your kids are safe and, that they're safe and healthy. All right, and so moving on from that one of the most common calls in the summer, and especially the 4th of July, are these little guys, these glow sticks, which are brightly colored tubes, usually plastic, that contain this effervescent or glowing liquid that is usually called a dibutyl phthalate. And that is a liquid chemical that can cause irritation. And so while they're not highly poisonous, we don't see a lot of symptoms from these, and except for some maybe bad taste to the mouth or upset stomach. We do see a lot of ingestions because they're around the neck or, like a headband, and kids will bite into those. They puncture and crack real easy as you're snapping them to light up. And so we see a lot of that, as well as eye exposure. So think about how easily these break, and if they're in front of your face, they can splash or spray into the eyes quite easily, and that causes a lot of intense burning and stinging that would need to be rinsed. And so it's really important, each and every time, to make sure these are supervised. Any of the glow products are pretty low risk, but they are supervised items, so make sure that after the party is over, they're put away and not tucked into bed with them, as that is also a common time when children kind of explore and puncture these as well. All right, our next 4th of July poison are just fireworks in general. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not going to be a discussion about the safety and the fire dangers and injury risk as much as it is a poisoning issue. And so fireworks typically entertain crowds with their noise and smoke and colors and lights. And those are usually cardboard tubes with this flammable powder inside the tubes. And most of the fireworks that are sold to the general public for household use are smaller versions of what is seen in a large display. And children can bite into these. You would be surprised, but they are colorful and attractive, and they usually contain 3 different things. One is the oxidizing agent, which helps to promote the fire, to get that fire to burn and the heat source. And then they have these binders, which kind of hold everything together and make sure that they're lit. There's a fuel source. And then there's some potential of some heavy metals in the fireworks, especially some of the older varieties, but they are in a form that aren't absorbed well. So if a child were to bite into one of these or take a lick or a taste, they're not overly toxic because of the small amount and the way that they're absorbed in the body. So definitely something that can cause upset stomach and vomiting, irritation, but not anything that is major. So moving on to some other types of fireworks, we have those cute little snake fireworks. And these are those ones that you light the little charcoal tablet and then the ashes, and they grow, right? And they look so cool and growing and glowing sometimes. And most of these ingestions occur to either the tablet themselves or the ashes that are left after use. And we don't see a ton of upset stomach with this, but that's really all we would see. Many manufacturers consider them to be non-toxic, but I would say they're low risk and just an irritant to the stomach. Certainly are more fun to watch than to eat, and they certainly would have a really nasty taste, I would imagine. All right, sparklers are one of the favorite 4th of July firework things, especially with children, because they're handheld and they produce those colorful flames and sparks. Of course, there is risk there with the wire in terms of a burn or an injury, because that heat from the firework can actually burn as hot as 1,000 degrees, causing, of course, the risk of burn or injury to the skin, to the eyes, or the mouth. So that by far is the most dangerous thing about these. But in terms of just a bite onto the tip before it's lit or something to that effect, that again is low risk. So the heat is the injury part. So it's important to monitor children and to remain standing when using sparklers, to hold at an arm's length at least, and to teach children to not move or run. And of course, these would only be safe with older children, not young children. We also encourage parents not to hold children or infants in their arms, and to wear closed-toed shoes, especially when using any type of fireworks, and to have that bucket of water ready and available afterwards. But in terms of a lick or a taste, low risk. Again, the heat is the issue with one of these types of fireworks. All right, any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat, and I'd love to answer anything about your upcoming 4th of July holiday. And then we're going to move on to a kind of a fun little firework thing. These are bang snaps or poppets, all sorts of different titles that these go by. And they're sort of a trick noise maker. Poppers, party snaps, snappers, throwdowns, and these have been around since the 1950s and were often used for a prank or a celebration. They make that loud popping sound when they are thrown or dropped to a hard ground. And so what these little paper bundles include is a small amount of a sand or sawdust type of material, which helps to muffle or moderate the sound, and then a little bit of an explosive material that's all twisted into this little bundle. And so when it's thrown or hits a hard surface, it produces that snap. So they don't typically cause damage, but if they were popped on the hand, you could have a mild stinging or like flicking situation, like if you were to get, flicked by a finger there like that. But we don't typically see burns or injury. If a child were to eat these, they typically moisten or wet pretty quickly, so we don't see an injury to the mouth other than some minor upset stomach. But definitely kind of a fun thing, but also something that should be supervised with use, as any of these, of course, are supposed to be. All right, moving on to a really colorful firework. Our last firework are smoke bombs of different varieties. They are designed to produce smoke upon ignition. And this usually works with potassium chloride, which is that oxidizer which lights the fuel source and keeps the fire burning. And they use a fuel like sugar or something to that effect. And something like baking soda, some ignition type of items. And then they also add dye for coloring. It's, again, low risk of eating. What you might see with this one is more of an inhalation or a breathing issue. So if somebody were close by in an area, or if it was put off in an area that is too confined, certainly these would be only for outdoor use. Person could have some coughing and throat irritation, eye irritation, but obviously we encourage that they're used safely, properly with ventilation, and not in any enclosed or tight areas that would be restrictive to this kind of going off and dispersing into the air. So we went quickly through a lot of different fireworks. In general, I would say most fireworks are more of the issue of fire and injury rather than poison. But I do want to encourage you to use any and all fireworks this weekend safely, to make sure that you are, you have precautions taken and that children aren't involved in the use of them, and that they are put away and out of reach. And then also for your 4th of July plans, anything like your food safety, your fuel sources for the barbecue, or your alcohol is put away properly each and every time at the end of the party, and children are supervised. We do understand that poisonings do happen despite your best efforts. And so we want to make sure that you're prepared and have the Poison Center number in your cell phone. So I would encourage you to take a moment, actually right now, and put the Poison Helpline or the Missouri Poison Center number in your phone. Our number is 1-800-222-1222. And you can reach out to us. Our specially trained experts, our nurses and pharmacists, work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are available even on the 4th of July evening for any questions or concerns, potential poisonings, for free and confidential. So I want to encourage you to have a safe and very fun 4th of July. Keep our number handy just in case you need us. We're here if you do. Have a great day.